Okay, so hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the EduphoreIAS, the Hindu analysis. Today, as the date you know, 19th of June, so we'll be starting as usual with the first page or the front page of the Hindu. Fine, and let us quickly glance at the first page, that which news is important in particular as far as our syllabus and exam is concerned. Fine. Okay, so we'll be starting from this first page. Let us first look at the left and right and what is important here, because this page gives us the idea about what important things been mentioned under the these further pages. So first is what the US should note as it plays host, pluralism and diversity must be recovered. So we'll see the Indian century question mark. Fine. This article as we proceed to this article, I will be giving you this background in brief. So fine, is this the Indian century? We will discuss this, what they have written. Second is Gorakhpur's Gita Press. Gita Press Gorakhpur gets Gandhi Peace Prize for of 2021. So this is pretty important, especially for the prelims exam or even state civil services exam, especially as far as your prelims paper is concerned. Fine, because many of the time you directly get the question that the 2021 Gandhi Peace Prize has been awarded to. Fine, the simplest question. And in UPSC, of course, with such few these statements, 2-3 statements. Okay, now this side. Again, what is going on in Manipur, we all are aware, we have discussed this time and again, so I am not going again to that. It would be a kind of repetitive thing. Indian drug surveillance in Sri Lanka over adverse events. So, of course, even earlier we, nowadays we are facing such kind of issues like Indian syrups, resulted into the deaths of many children abroad in the different countries. So, of course, we need to somewhere tighten our this regulatory framework. At the same time, our country, our different, these companies producing such kind of drugs need to be very much, let us say, yes, needs to be careful, needs to test their product before they finally coming up in the market, launching in the markets. Fine. Apart from that, these things are not that important. Fine. Okay, so let us quickly move to the next pages. देखते हैं कि next page पे क्या important है आज के लिए. So rain likely today, mercury to stay below 40 degree this week. Okay, this is meteorological department's information. Again, this is a local page. Fine. Related to crimes, most of them are related to crimes. Okay. Again, politics and only politics here. Fine, not that important. Okay. So let us quickly move to the next pages, see what's important on other pages. Again, politics. Okay. Okay. Okay, education. Okay, finally we have landed on the most important page of any newspaper, and that is the editorial. Fine, today we will be starting with this, is this the India century? So, firstly, this is preparedness page of course you might have seen that what happened, I mean this, this related to Biparjoy. So, India has escaped the fury of the cyclone Biparjoy because of early warnings from the IMD. Fine, especially when it made landfall in the Gujarat, especially in the run of Kutch. So, of course, if you see the casualty, there are only 2-3 people, I think 1 or 2 people actually died. So, of course, it and lakhs, people almost around a lakh were, relocated, provided with, this safer places alongside food and all. So, of course, you can see this is one of the good examples where we were fully prepared to face this cyclone Biparjoy, and all this happened because of the early warnings that we, the administration received from the IMD. So yes, this has been a good, you can say we are well prepared to face this cyclone. So this example can be quoted somewhere related to disaster management and all. Okay, so this is the article that what Indians should be saying to the US on June 21. As June 21, you know, our honorable Prime Minister happens to visit 3 days visit from 20 to 21, 22. Of course, he will be visiting US. Fine. So this is related to that thing only. But let me clear you first before going into this article. This article is has few goods but many bads, because they has you know, it's like they are criticizing entirely to the current establishment. Fine. And they are writing some you know, they have written, I mean, these 2 paragraphs of this article written exactly in the negative manner. I mean, you see, they are outrightly criticizing the current government. Fine. In the last paragraph, concluding remarks, they are even questioning the US government and from President Barack Obama to Joe Biden for inviting Modi and Mr. Modi and for hosting, being a host. Fine. So we'll see quickly, but let us first focus on the good things. There are certain good things as well here. So when this April India surpassed China, yes. So you know, today we have become, according to United Nations this population fund, that today we are the largest populated nation in the world. Fine. Almost we have population of around 142.8 you know, this of course crores you can say. So when this April India surpassed China as the world's most populous nation, commentators were quick to declare this the Indian century. Okay, applauded, primarily reflecting the so-called demographic dividend. Yes, so we surpassed China and became the most populated country, but the good thing is that this populated, you know, this highest population in the world we are today. So this shows 2 things. First is our demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is basically the people in the working age group, primarily let us say in the age group of 15 to this somewhere around 60-40 years. So demographic by 2030, the ratio of India's working age population to its total population will reach somewhere 70%. Fine. So you see that this demographic dividend, because by 2030 we will be the largest nation with highest demographic dividend, and that is our working age population would be somewhere in the range of 70% of this total population. Fine. This would be equivalent to 1/4 of the world's population, working age population. Fine. Alongside that, this population also, you know, of course, translates into consumer class. So of course, India is you know, that's why majority of you see MNCs today looking after India, because we are one of the largest consumer market as well, markets for global companies as well. Fine. Because of this huge chunk of population in this age group. Fine. So a powerhouse of the world. Some good things here. Starting from the historical background, a powerhouse of the world we had been in the past, of course. So there have been other Indian centuries as well apart from the current century. So however, prior to the colonial depredations suffered before regaining independence in 1947. Fine. So before colonial depredations is basically, you know, depredation is something, you know, taking away of, let us say, or making you poor, taking away your property and all, whatever riches you had. So colonial depredation suffered before regaining independence in 1947. For a millennium before the arrival of British India, of course, before, you know, millennium before the arrival of British or the colonial power, we along with China, means India and China together, along with China, was powerhouse. By the 1600s, it is estimated to have possessed up to quarter of, that is 25%, 1/4 of the world's production capacity. So you can see almost we were, you know, sharing alongside China with 2 countries were, you know, having the share of around, you know, 25% or 1/4 of the world's you know, 1/4 of the world's GDP or the production capacity. Fine. Then in the 1600s, when finally the British East India Company landed in India. So the imperial capital in Delhi की बात कर रहे हैं, the imperial capital which used to be Delhi was the destination of ambassadors from the court of King James I to that of Ayutthaya Emperor of today's Thailand. Fine. So of course, Delhi happened to be the imperial capital and the seats of, or you can say the destination for majority of the ambassadors being from King James I of this England to the Ayutthaya Emperor of today's Thailand. Okay, of poets, painters, musicians from across Central and West Asia, of course, poets, painters, musicians from across Central and West Asia, and of craftsmen from as far as field as Italy, who brought with them the Piera Dura artistry that adorns the Taj Mahal. Fine. So alongside them, alongside this like poet, painters and musicians, even craftsmen, came the different sets of, let us say, poetry or genre of poetry or even the artistic work. So Petra Dura is basically a technique of artistic work, let us say, so mosaic work basically, which involves the semi-precious stones, fine. So which is there you can see in the Taj Mahal, fine. So of course, so authors are saying that that century, fine, this previous paragraphs related century of 1600, that century was only the last of many marked by breathtaking achievements. So ये कहते हैं कि जो last 1600 century थी, that was one among the many centuries which were breathtaking, marked by the breathtaking achievements, fine, previous centuries actually. So how we going to begin an inventory? They give the example of why even before the 1600s, earlier century used to be of special, let us say, or marked by achievements. For example, invention of zero, Aryabhatta. So invention of zero, making possible algebra and calculus, and eventually the computer, because computer works on binary numbers 1 and 0, fine. So that's why contribution of zero plays very important role here. Apart from that, the perfection of linguistics matched by the West only in the 20th century. A language landscape vastly unlike Rome's or China's, which saw writers in dozens of languages producing works of transcendental beauty. Of course, you might, from the history, you can recall that majority of our books, our scriptures, even Ramayana, Mahabharata and all, they were translated during this century, during the 20th century, of course. And that's how it went to different countries, even Buddhist literatures and all. Weavers who clothed the world as far as Africa and beyond, of course. Historically, we have been one of the exporters, especially in terms of textiles, fine. Metallurgists who made corrosion resistant iron 2000 years ago, iron pillar, Mehrauli iron pillar, Delhi, Chandragupta II. So of course, which is corrosion free even today. And farmers who sent new cereals and cumin, cardamom and other cultivars into the world. So of course, we have been historically exporters of, let us say, this spices alongside clothes and all, and of course scriptures and our great cultural traditional these things as well. So who also demonstrated how to live in harmony with animals hunted to extinction everywhere else. So these are the things which has happened to be the past, this richness or riches. So colonialism eroded most of the tradition of, indeed colonialism led to the destruction of handicraft, let us say, industry, fine, and everything from exporters of this finished goods or ready-made textiles, we became one of the importers of same things, fine. So colonialism eroded most of the tradition that made India great, but after 4 decades of so colonialism or British, this beginning of the British rule eroded most of the tradition that we had or which had made India great civilization. But after 4 decades of most creative mobilization for freedom in the history, the country began in 1947 to reclaim its patrimony. Patrimony is basically the land, the property which we inherit from our forefathers, or let us say one's father, fine. Although the democratic constitution of independent India, so the democratic constitution of independent India was written by the great father of, let us say, Indian constitution, B.R. Ambedkar. But they are saying because one of the author happened to be from Columbia University, you can see. So that's why even Dr. Ambedkar, happened to be, who also studied at Columbia University, fine. The republican practices and federalism inherent in it have much deeper roots in the country. Yes, Though with the constitution we came across certain words like republican, like democratic, and like democracy, like federalism, but you know, since Mahajanpada's period and all, we were having such kind of setup, republicanism and democracy and even this federalism, fine. So inherent in our deeper roots, much beyond much before what was what all these words were mentioned under our constitution in the year 1947 or to say 1950, fine. And while independent India's self-description, unity in diversity, may have become a mere slogan today, it was exemplified throughout the long historical record of India's pluralism. Pluralism, my friends, is basically, let us say, pluralism is like coexistence, like coexisting even with the diversities, fine. So like having beliefs in many, let us say, different faiths, this or sharing, it's basically a this political philosophy which holds that different sets of beliefs, religions, cultures, traditions and even linguistic differences can assimilate with each other and coexist, fine. So that is pluralism. It means you can say basically pluralism actually represents the unity in diversity, fine. The remarkable achievements of India distant and more recent past, above all, now from here on they are changing the track, fine. They are saying that whatever we have discussed in the previous two paragraphs, that is the remarkable achievements that we have had historically, above all is singular achievement of learning to live with religions and cultural differences, that is pluralism, are now at risk under the government of Shri Narendra Modi, fine. So from here on they are tracking the, you know, they are changing the track of their writing, fine. From here on in the next up till this, you know, they are just lambasting the current government, you can say criticizing the current government. They are saying the government is attacking a particular community, let us say Muslims, and they are mentioning a lot of things to substantiate their point, like for example, Article 370, revocation of Article 370, then National Population Register, then amendment to the Citizenship Act, then many other things like this tightening of Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, fine, and inspection of the let us say BBC accounts and all, even and this even CPR, Center for Policy Research, one of the leading public policy think tanks. So even the concentrated attack they are saying on the intellectual and administrative autonomy of Jawaharlal University. So these are the examples they are giving. I'm not going into that because I mean you can see somewhere it's as a bureau, you know, since you are planning to become bureaucrats, so it requires us, you know, to become neutral or to remain neutral, fine. So let us not focus on entirely such kind of things, because even criticism should be a constructive one, fine. Then only we can it has certain utility to discuss. Otherwise, this is one-sided. So that's why I'm leaving it, fine. Okay. One data you can remember: we have around 14% of the population constitutes the Muslims. That is nearly 200 million. Fine. That is 20 crores. Fine. So this is a start. Now they are giving the Adani saga. They happen to label this as Mr. Adani as an Modi intimate friend. So of course I am not again going to that, and of use for us to go into that. So the final paragraph is important because, and this is with context to the US, the host for the current visit. So they are saying that as Chief Minister, Mr. Modi was denied a visa to the United States in 2005 because of his perceived involvement in the Gujarat pogrom or Gujarat 2002 Gujarat riots. Fine. This week he arrives on a state visit to the United States, despite the fact that his human rights and civil liberties record since being elected Prime Minister in 2014 is in many ways worse. The plain fact is that this record has been totally ignored by Presidents Barack Obama, Donald Trump and even Joe Biden. If, as the White House has said, the Indian leader will be visiting in order to strengthen our two countries' shared commitments to a free, open, prosperous and secure Indo-Pacific. Focus on what the US is saying, that Indian leader will be visiting in order to strengthen our two countries in a this two countries shared commitment to free, open, prosperous and secure Indo-Pacific. America's leaders must start taking seriously about what freedom and openness now mean in India. India will only inaugurate an Indian century if its great traditions of pluralism and respect for diversity can be recovered. Fine. So, extreme, they are going to extreme, though to a certain extent it is a agreeable fact as well that if we want, especially the last 3 lines I am talking about, that if we want this 21st century to be of India's century, then of course we will have to take into account our diversity, find whatever things going on, of course we all are rational enough to see whether things are going in the right perspective or not. So, of course, if there are certain negative things or certain things which should not be ideally, therefore, let us say this claiming it to our century, fine, or making this 21st century as India's century, some things if you are lacking on some certain aspects, we need to improve their own as well, fine, that's not that's undeniable fact. So, only to inaugurate the India century if its great tradition of pluralism, respect for diversity can be recovered. I won't say recovered because we have not somewhere lost it. You recover something which has been lost, but we have not lost it as they are claiming, but rather I would say that of course, it would be our century if we let us say work together, transcending the community these differences of course, and of course moving or embarking on the same path. That is the last line mentioning, that is taking into account the pluralism and the unity and diversity, that that is actually the India's strength, and that's where our strength lies, fine. So, that's important, fine. You see, not all well here, but whatever good things were there we have taken already, and whatever bad things were I have already given you the insight as well. So, not much beyond that to focus on that article. Okay, next is responsibility and the complexities of climate leadership. Now, what is this article all about? So, firstly I am giving a brief about this, what is mentioned under this article. So, remember COP28, Conference of Parties, 28 rounds of Conference of Parties, which is going to be hosted by the UAE, fine. So, UAE minister who is designated as president for this COP meeting, named Minister Sultan Al Jaber, fine, of the UAE, fine. So, there are certain reservations of the US and European parliamentarians calling for his removal on the grounds that he is also the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, fine, the largest oil company of UAE, fine. So, that is why considering this a conflict of interest or his certain misalignments, or let us say this being the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. So, of course, somewhere conflict of interest, because this is related to fossil fuels and we are talking about clean energy and all. So, this is what US, Americans and let us say European parliamentarians want him to be removed from this as he has been designated as president for this COP28, but the two dignitaries, that is Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and Mohammad Nasheed, the Speaker of the Maldivian Parliament currently and a former President of the Maldives, they are opposing this move by the parliamentarians of respective countries, European and this Americans, fine. So, they two people focusing on the things which are more important than this politics, fine. They are focusing on more important things which must come out from such COP meetings, especially for the developing countries. Even we are a developing country. So, that is why this article not that important per se, because nowhere India has been mentioned here directly or indirectly, but still as a developing country, as a let us say leader of the developing countries, we need to be aware of what is going on around the world, fine. But in certain perspective, for getting general facts and figures, or you can say generally this what is going on around the climate change related issues globally, this article per se becomes important. So, quickly let us see what is the issue with the COP. In the COP, not going into the politics of what is going on, but focusing majorly on what is important. So, over the last weeks, there has been an increasingly vocal campaign to unseat the president designate of COP28. Remember, COP27 happened in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, and COP26 in Scotland, fine. Minister President designate of COP28, Minister Sultan Al Jaber of the host nation, that is UAE. So, UAE is going to host COP28. This includes a recent letter from, of course, we have discussed all this, to unseat him, because he is also the ground for his removal is, seeking his removal is, as he is the CEO of Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, Fine. What's more important is what they are writing further. As representatives of developing countries in the climate change front line, that is Bangladesh and Maldives, and as leaders of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, a group of 58 of the world's most climate vulnerable countries. So remember, group of 58 countries, that is group of most climate vulnerable countries, that is a group of 58 countries, hosting around 1.5 billion of the world's poorest people. We know only too well the urgency of the climate challenge. We have endured climate related economic losses of $5 billion in the last 2 decades alone. Fine. So they are basically focusing on the core issues, the consequences of climate change and all, apart from what's been the what is the politics. So this is journey of unity. They are saying that together all of the each and every nation needs to come to embark on this journey. So however, we also recognize that this journey towards a clean, they are recognizing that this journey towards a clean energy future is one we must embark on together. Fossil fuel dependent economies are critical to these efforts, and they clearly have a more difficult task defining their energy transition strategy. So they are saying that since UAE, Saudi Arabia, all are fossil fuel based economy, you can see, because they export majorly crude and petroleum to the world. So of course, it's imperative, it becomes important that, or it's imperative that take along all these countries, especially those countries which are fossil based economy, in order to have a better outcome, fine, or you can say in defining the energy transition. It is important to avoid division, and we must continue to engage our fellow parties at COP28 and elsewhere on the best way forward for their economies and for the planet. Fine. Now they are defending the Sultan Al Jaber by giving few examples. So we are not going to that because kind of politics is. Now what would be focusing on the certain facts, certain things like finance. So finance is pretty important, very important, fine. And as they are writing, finance will be crucial for COP28. What is issue is the finance is that since COP21 Paris Climate Agreement, in that agreement now it's a binding agreement, remember, which has replaced the Kyoto Protocol, that is PCA, Paris Climate Agreement, or COP21, fine, 2015, December 2015, happened in Paris. So there it was promised that developed countries, especially because they are the ones who have emitted a lot, let us say, because the industrialized nations are responsible for today's global warming and emissions to a greater extent, fine, and developing countries are still to in their transitionary phase, or you can say still they are to develop, fine, or they are on the path of development. So of course, so developed countries were asked to do more, and one of the thing was to fund the transition of the developing countries or the poorer economies, fine, especially by devolving around $100 billion per year for green technology, fine, or let us say renewable energy, fine, so that to make the transition of these countries easier. This $100 billion was not much, but later on the figures kept on revising, but even were not able to reach this target, or the developed countries could not meet this target. So that's why finance has always been one of the crucial topic of discussion during such meetings, fine. So finance will be crucial for COP28 as well. Our program of climate prosperity plans including the Mujib, she is quoting her own Mujib climate prosperity plan that was adopted in Bangladesh, fine. So again, need not to go into that. So this climate prosperity agenda recognizes that economic growth for the poorest countries is non-negotiable, and that our prospects should not be curtailed so that the rich countries can keep on polluting. Of course, they are the polluters, especially developed ones. Luckily, we do not seek oil. So they are saying that luckily we are not asking for coal, oil or gas, rather we seek electricity, transport and industry, all of which can now be increasingly delivered with clean energy, fine. So this is a good thing. So that's why they seek the UAE's leadership in helping secure investments supported by sovereign wealth funds and multilateral development banks, which can deliver the huge boost in climate prosperity that actually the developing countries need. So they are looking for investment from this, securing investment from UAE leadership as well. Second point, apart from finance, is debt. Debt is a barrier. Many of our nations are also crippled by unsustainable debts, including debt which are becoming unpayable due to climate damages largely caused by emissions elsewhere. Rather than going one by one over the financial cliff, we urgently need a collective approach which recognizes the debt problem and the barrier it now poses to clean energy investment in climate adaptation. So they are also, because debt, of course, you see, all of the major, major countries or economies today are under this grip of, especially post-pandemic, debt. Even we, according to our FRBM target, our ideal debt to GDP ratio should be 60%, 40% or 24 states, 40 plus 20. But even today, we are in the range of somewhere 82, 83%, means somewhere 80 plus. Fine. So even that is, a barrier for our making further investment, let us say, in such kind of cleaner or renewable energy field, or to have a greener transition. Fine. So that's why all the countries need here, especially the developed countries, needs to come up with the investments, fine, or to help the developing countries. And in such process, even one of the ideas which was suggested by the minister mentioned, that is Al-Jaber, Sultan Al-Jaber. So he suggested certain things which they are mentioning, like sovereign wealth funds and multilateral development banks could assist in de-risking restructured debts and ensuring reissued climate bonds. So Al-Jaber suggested to for sovereign wealth funds, that is the nations which come up with the, such kind of funds, that's where sovereign wealth funds, and MDBs, multilateral development banks, let us say even World Bank or let us say BRICS Bank or EIIB, fine, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and all these banks, so multilateral development banks could also assist in de-risking of, let us say, restructured debts and issuing of reissued climate bonds, as mentioned by Sultan Al-Jaber, or he has suggested such things. So Sultan Al-Jaber can now demonstrate to Europe and to North America what leadership really means by explicitly signaling to sovereign wealth funds and MDBs that he wants to see their full participation. So they are saying that we further call on UAE leadership for a clean energy target, fine. So they are also saying, okay, we call on UAE leadership for a clean energy target starting in 2025, transforming this Abu Dhabi national company into Abu Dhabi Clean Energy and Grid Company by 2030, fine. So that's how you say this is a very good article, in the sense that they are not just defending, but also suggesting certain way forward for the UAE as well, and towards global financial reforms, including of the International Monetary Fund. So of course, alongside that, they are also talking about, both of the writers talking about reforming the international or global financial institutions as well, including, let us say, World Bank as well as IMF. In particular, IMF they have mentioned. Thus, finance continues to be central to the COP outcome. Yes, the loss and damage fund. So remember one fund that was created in the Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, basically, in the COP 27, fine, the last COP 27, must not be just another empty bank account, as the $100 billion was, and fossil fuel dependent economies can demonstrate their commitment to shared future by making subscriptions to support funding for climate damages in the most vulnerable countries well in advance of the COP. So they are saying that fossil fuels dependent economies, for example UAE, Saudi Arabia, even we India, fossil fuel dependent, almost 51% of the share in total energy is of course from fossil sector, fine. So these countries need to demonstrate their commitment to shared future by making subscription to support funding for climate damage in the most vulnerable, or let us say poorer nations, well in advance of the COP 28. So there are no winners or losers in global, there are no winners and losers in global climate breakdown, the oil industry included. As representatives of the most climate vulnerable developing nations, we call on American and European parliamentarians to reconsider their position, that is of removing this Sultan Al-Jaber from this president designated post. Instead of seeking to exclude relevant parties and stakeholders, we believe everyone should participate in decision with such important ramification. So yes, they are saying instead of asking or seeking their his removal, let us rather we should all of us together work on this path or embark on this path, and we believe that everyone should participate in decisions with such important ramification. Of course, global climate change has global ramification as well. So, holding COP28 in the UAE and with Sultan Al Jaber as co-president designate may well be an opportunity to engage with the fossil fuel industry to make some significant and quantifiable commitments to emission cut and climate change. Time is running out, indeed time is running out, and we all need to work together to save the 1.5 degree Celsius Paris target before it is too late. Fine. Already you see the impact of global warming, fine, from the last 2-3 days. Of course, you could see the level of, especially this level of rise in temperature and all. So, of course, we are running out of time. We need to take the urgent steps in order to get back to or achieve the target that was mentioned under this. Okay, this is related to US and China, so that's why I'm skipping this article. We'll be focusing rather on bots, some things from this science and tech part. Okay, Telegram, one of the famous, this platform for especially the UPSC students and all, sharing lots of stuff there, fine, PDFs and all. So, Telegram bots, what are bots? We will see Telegram bots, their functioning and possible security threats, fine. Telegram bots, how they are functioning and what could be the security threats from such bots, that is what we are going to focus, fine. So, bots on Telegram are small applications. So, what are bots? Bots, remember, are small applications, especially we are talking here about Telegram, that run entirely within the platform and can be designed to support any kind of task or service. However, not all of them are secure and safe. They may collect user data, including personal information and chat history, fine. So, that is the issue with the bot. Now, some background: on June 12, reports came out which alleged that a Telegram bot had access to and was presenting the identification numbers of the documents submitted for vaccination purposes, which includes Aadhaar, PAN card and even passport numbers of individuals. So, this is what happened on June 12. A report came into the public domain that the bot, Telegram bot, basically had access to such kind of important information or data. In similar incident in 2021, a bot on the platform, that is Telegram, was found selling phone numbers pulled from Facebook. Security researchers reportedly found a network of deep fake bots on the platform that were generating non-consensual images of people submitted by the users, some of which involved even children, fine. So, Vox described Telegram as ISIS app of choice, saying the real use of the platform was the use of channels to distribute materials to large groups. While the platform has acted to remove public channels affiliated with the terrorism, its backers have reiterated that they have no business snooping on private conversations. So, of course, one set of, if publics are, involved with such kind of platforms, of course, if our, personal information is being, let us say, released or let us say disclosed by such kind of platforms in public domain. So, of course, we will be wary of the worry about that, but on the other hand, this is the nature of platform to defend itself, fine, but yes, they are not doing anything wrong. So, before going into all these things, let us first discuss what exactly is the Telegram. So, Telegram is an open source API, that is application performing, fine, this API is the open source API, fine. Open source is what? Under this, developers can change. So, things are publicly available, and here different developers, if you want to insert certain new codes, or let us say want to make some bring some changes in the application itself, they can make changes. That way is called open source and even public source, fine. The other name for this. Messaging platform service launched in 2013. The platform allows developers to create their own apps, that's why it was called open source, and use the free to use API to develop specialized tools like bots to integrate services. The platform currently has over 700 million monthly active users, that is 70 crores, and is one of the 10 most downloaded apps in the world, and is known for supporting files shares of up to 2 GB stored on the cloud that can be accessed from different devices. But that's why it has more reach and acceptability as well, because you can share your file even up to 2 GBs, fine, which you cannot do on over WhatsApp. So supported financially by Pavel Durov and his brother Nikolai. On the technological front, Telegram makes money through its sponsored messages and premium subscriptions. The platform protects, basically they are Russians, the platform protects private conversations from snooping third parties, including officials, marketers and advertisers. So it does have, this platform does has this security mechanism as well, but still they are being compromised. The platform's website says the platform does not process any requests related to group chats and private conversation among participants. They only entertain requests related to sticker sets, channels and bots. They are publicly available. So all good things have been mentioned over their these Telegram websites. So what are bots now? Bots are computer programs that act as agents of user or another computer program. Fine. So bots are basically, you can say, harmful computer programs that act as an agent of a user. Even they can be, not just harmful but beneficial as well, provided with what intentions they have been inserted. Fine. So act as agent of a user or another computer program. Bots or Telegram are small applications that run entirely within the platform and can be designed to support any kind of task or services. So this much is important. Sometimes you get the question directly in the prelims related to bots. So bots on Telegram can host what function they can perform full web apps and can be designed to support everything from online stores to arcade games. Additionally, since UPSC asks questions in 2-3 statements, so that's why this information become important, that additionally they can also be designed to make it easier for users to access information held within large database they are connected to. So even this makes our work easier to get the required information, okay, by simply just entering the name or description of files that we are looking for. So but bot can search and bring it before you, fine. So bots are listed on platform as special accounts that do not require a phone number to set up and are connected to the owner's servers, which process input and request from users. So remember, another statement could be in the exam like, bots are listed on the platform as special accounts that do not require phone number. Sometimes we said, such kind of extreme words, we tend to think that this statement would be wrong. But remember, bots do not require your phone number. Fine. They can be found using the search feature on the Telegram app. Users can identify bots by looking at their username, fine, which usually has bot as a suffix. So you can check it out whether your name has this, or username whichever you have entered has these bots or not, because these bots come as suffix, fine, with the username itself. They can also have, let us say, stickers, GIF, wiki or at Bing as their suffix, fine. So these can be the things. Very, very important this paragraph about the bot. Direct question you can expect from this. So who can create bots on Telegram? Any developer with some skills in computer program or a third party service provider can create a Telegram bot using the platform bot. Any developer. Why? Because this is an open source, remember, or public source. So in open source, any developer can with of course the skills can using this in computer programming or third party service provider can create such kind of bots, fine. The API gives the tools and framework required to integrate code for the bot within the platform. The platform assists the creation of bots through BotFather, a virtual user designed to be the central development tool for the Telegram bots. Fine. So you can remember this much of information. Telegram requires bots created using its bot API to be registered using an authentication token generated by the platform. So this much is a requirement. Fine. Bots on the platform can be created using a wide range of programming language, which includes Java and Python. Of course, these are programming language. What is the use of bot on Telegram? So bots are usually used in the professional areas for smart communication and pulling information from defined databases. So this is the primary usage or application of bots over Telegram. They are useful in professional areas and for smart communication and pulling information from defined databases. Now the question is, are these, so for example, if a user does not wish to open their email app to check their messages, they can use a bot to check their email within the Telegram app. Users can also authorize bots to respond to emails from the Telegram